Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Apopka High School welcomes you to Joe Sterling Gymnasium for game number 9 in the 9th annual Metro versus Florida Challenge, presented by Burn Fat Orlando and St. Germain Chiropractic Clinics. Please welcome our guests wearing the black jerseys. Visitors on the scoreboard from Winter Springs High School, they are the Bears. And wearing the white jerseys, home on the scoreboard representing the Orlando Metro Conference, from Lake Nona High School, please welcome the Lions. Let's meet the teams, beginning with our guests from Winter Springs, and we'll start with junior number 2, A.J. Cofield. Senior number 4, Varian Mitchell. Junior number 21, Mark Mosher. Senior number 22, Christian Jorn. And finally for the Bears, junior number 23, Cole Duncan. And the head coach of the Bears in his 6th year at Winter Springs, Will Bakanowsky. And now let's meet the Lake Nona Lions, starting at shooting guard with 6'1", senior number 1, Nicholas Cross. At point guard, 5'9", senior number 3, Colin Brown. At guard and small forward, 6'2", junior number 21, Jalen Harper. At forward, 6'6", junior number 24, Andre Cooper. And finally for the Lions at forward, senior number 32, Francisco Ramirez Velez. And the head coach of the Lions in his 4th year at Lake Nona, Mr. Antonio Cunningham. The officials for this afternoon's game are from the Central Florida Officials Association here in Orlando. Today's game, like all of our games at the Metro vs. Florida Challenge, is being live streamed on our YouTube channel, Metro vs. Florida Challenge. You can also get a live feed of the stats from our website, MetroVSFL.com. Again, MetroVSFL.com, or the Metro vs. Florida Challenge on YouTube. We also tweet out the links and scores from our Twitter and Facebook accounts at MetroVSFL.
Lions 3 and 4 are switched.
For who?
Lions.
Oh, are they both starting, or you just mean they're starting?
Only one of them starting, but the 2 numbers are switched.
Welcome to Joe Sterling Gymnasium. My name is Mark Barchi. I am the media director of the Metro vs. Florida Challenge, and I am joined by Neil Fisher of the Apopka Chief to take you through this and each of our contests here on day 2 of the Metro vs. Florida Challenge.
Well, thank you again, Mark. As always, a fine job there on the introduction. And this should be an interesting game. We talked a little bit about it in the last one.
Nicholas Cross opens up scoring with a 3 for the Lions.
So not only is this a game between the Metro Conference versus the Florida contingency, but we also got one of the newer schools in Lake Nona. They're only in their 5th year. Again, as you mentioned, Antonio Cunningham's been the coach for, this is his 4th year, so he's been there all 4 years. You look at the other side, we have Winter Springs. They're an older school in the area, approaching 30.
Cross to Johnson for another Lions 3.
So now we also do have an unusual matchup between these 2 schools. Usually you get 2 schools that at least have some semblance of being known when it comes to playoff time, the postseason tournament. Many of these schools have long had ambitions, legitimate ambitions, of advancing deep into the FHSA postseason tournament. We just saw that with Evans. In order to get into the
Cole Duncan picks up a jumper for the Bears to put them on the board.
So in order to get into the FHSAA postseason tournament, at least through the end of this year, the teams, the first and second place teams, the teams placing first or second in the district championship tournament advance to the FHSAA postseason tournament. In this particular game, you get 2 teams that, for lack of a better way of putting it and trying to be respectful, they're middle-of-the-road teams. Neither of them have really gone very often past that FHSA postseason, past the district championship tournament.
Looks like Varian Mitchell might have cut his lip here. So he'll need a sub until the training team can take care of that.
And of course, Lake Nona, they come in. They last season had a 10-16 record. Winter Springs was 14-12. So again, going back to, for lack of a better way of putting it, these are two teams, two programs that throughout their existence have been known as middle of the road programs. Now, Lake Nona is certainly having a better record, better year this year, at 6-5 at the end of December compared to Winter Springs, who was only 2 of 8.
Jalen Harper adds 3 more for the Bears. Well, Neil, I can't say much about their penetration game so far, but they're red hot from outside the arc.
Yeah, and again, I just talked about the last game with Evans. Lake Nona is certainly resembling taking a page out of Evans' book. If you remember, they started off, their first 4 baskets were 3-pointers. And Lake Nona has scored 3 of 4 from 3-point range now.
Putback made by Andre Cooper.
And the score is the same too at 11-2.
Lions push is called against number 1, Nicholas Cross. That's his first personal foul on the team's first.
And so another factor that has come into play with the records for both teams in their performances this season. And of course, this usually has a lot to do with the team that's middle of the road compared to a team that has legitimate aspirations of going deep into the FHSA postseason playoffs.
Hold is called against number 2, A.J. Cofield, is first, the team's first.
That difference being a lot of turnovers. Lake Nona lost 8 players last year from a team that went 10-16 and 5-5 in Class 9A District 4. The Bears actually lost 6 players, although they do return 6 more. Again, they were 14-12 last year. They're members of Class 9A District 2, and their coach Will Bakanowsky is in his 6th year. One other point before we get into this game.
Push is called against number 1, Nicholas Cross. That's his second personal foul on the team's second.
So one other point is that we do have a face of the program, a guy who's well known if you follow high school basketball. That's Cole Duncan. He plays for Winter Springs, number 23. He's already made his presence felt here, at least as far as keeping Winter Springs in the game, although to be honest, if they miss a few more, we might not. He is 2018 Orlando Sentinel All-Seminole County, a junior.
Foul called against Lions Colin Brown, his first, the team's third, and that will send Mark Moshier to the line to shoot 2 for the Bears.
So opportunity here for Winter Springs to catch its breath, maybe be able to get a little bit more mentally reset. Lake Nona's come out here with a barrage of 3-pointers, as you mentioned, Mark. And again, usually when you shoot well from the field, that's set up by good rebounding and turnovers. We saw that in the last game during Evans' victory. Not only did they shoot the ball well, shooting over 50% from the field, but they had a huge advantage in rebounding and turnovers, and they got more field goal attempts by a large margin as well.
Push is called against number 23. Cole Duncan is first, the team's second. At the line shooting 2, Bryce Johnson.
First free throw attempts of the game by Lake Nona.
And actually, Neil, while we're paused here for a second, we're going to disconnect and reconnect the stream. We seem to be having some challenges keeping enough bandwidth. So you're getting us, but you're getting us in a kind of choppy feed. So we're going to reconnect it at a lower bandwidth. We figure that you would rather be getting... We figure you would rather be getting a good stream at a lower quality than a bad stream at a higher quality. So we'll take care of that for you in just a moment here. Don't be alarmed when the stream momentarily cuts out. All right, so that should be better there. We've got the stream quality corrected, hopefully, to where we can keep a strong connection here even with public school Wi-Fi.
So you did not miss anything. Well, actually, was it 13? So with 3 minutes, 19 seconds left here, we have a 13-3 ball game. And again, Winter Springs has come out shooting the ball well. They're over 50%, and that barrage does include 3 3-pointers. And that advantage is not only in the percentage, but they've taken 4 more field goal attempts, all of which has been created by an advantage in rebounding as well as turnovers.
Push is called against number 2. A.J. Cofield is second, the team's third. Traveling Lions ball. And so, Neil, I think we're going to have better luck with this. We were trying to broadcast in full HD, and it was kind of cutting in and out, and I think our viewers were probably seeing some skipping and buffering. So now we are broadcasting in partial HD at 720p, which is still a very good signal, and on all but the biggest screen televisions will look just fine. The difference is that we can more reliably maintain that connection at a 1.5 megabit per second rate. So hopefully you'll get a much better experience for the rest of this half.
Yeah, and there are those of you who have listened to us for a while. You know we talk a lot about being good decision makers out on the court. Well, it applies here at the broadcast booth as well.
White 24.
Foul is called against number 24. Andre Cooper, his first personal foul, and the team's fifth.
And so this game between Winter Springs and Lake Nona is the 8th of what will eventually be 20 over the course of 4 days in the MLK holiday, MLK Junior holiday. Was that a field goal attempt?
No, it was just out of bounds on the rim.
So Lake Nona continues to hold a big lead, at least when you compare it to how deep into the game we are, not even through the first quarter. 10 points is a fairly large lead. They came out, shot the ball well, and they continue to shoot the ball well, although we get a missed one there. And that's what you just saw, the rebounding, setting up, along with turnovers, not only good field goal percentage, but getting an advantage in the number of field goal attempts taken.
Foul is called on number 24, Josue Hernandez. That's his first personal foul, the team's fourth. Got some more personnel changes.
And again, rebounding continues to be the strong suit for Lake Nona. Even though they didn't score there, they did get 2 more field goal attempts. And I know I keep saying this, I've said it throughout the whole event, but it really is true, and it just can't be stated enough. The more a team shoots field goals, the more likely they are to score points.
Roy Traz picks up 2 for the Lions.
So I talked about rebounding being the catalyst for that high field goal percentage, and the more attempts being taken by Lake Nona, turnovers have also been a part of that.
Darian Mitchell's fouled on the attempt to go to the line and shoot two. The foul is called against number 32, Bryce Johnson, his first and the team's sixth.
And there you just saw why turnovers being played out in as far as giving Lake Nona more opportunities. Easy basket there created out of transition.
Hey, we got a illegal number out there. Black 32 is not in the book. Black 32 is not
So,
in the book.
you know, it's okay. The person they reported as 31 should have been 32. Connor Combs is 32. Yeah, it wasn't written clearly. It looked like a 31. So we'll fix it.
All right, we're good. That's good. All right.
All right. Did he make the first one?
Yes. No.
So missed opportunity there for Lake Nona. They obviously have a big lead here after only one quarter, 12 points. Excuse me, Winter Springs. Opportunity for Winter Springs to cut into that lead heading into the second quarter. But also, now they're going to have to deal with the last shot being taken by Lake Nona.
Traveling, Bears ball.
So I guess you could say no harm, no foul as far as those two missed free throws for Winter Springs. Traveling call here by Lake Nona. And Winter Springs now will have the last opportunity. Well, no, they will not. Another turnover. And a great play there, drawing the charge, immediately taking advantage of the miscue by Winter Springs.
Jalen Harper is fouled on the attempt to go to the line and shoot two. The foul is called against number 11. Leonard Blake is first, the team's fifth.
So we talked, and Mark, I guess there's why you were so intent on finding out who number 21 was.
Harper at the line hits his first. Yeah, of course, to give our viewers a little bit of insight into how this event gets put together, we try to collect the rosters at least 2 weeks ahead of time so that we can prepare the scorebook and the program in advance. Because since we only have 10 minutes between games, we don't have time to do the usual full setup in advance of the game, and there are still inevitably a few last-second adjustments, as that takes us to the end of the first period, and it is a 14-point advantage for the Lions. They've held the Bears to just 3. 17-3 is the score at the end of 8 minutes. And we'll take this opportunity to thank our partners at St. Germain Chiropractic Clinics, offering the best non-invasive healthcare services in the Central Florida and Orlando area. With most insurance accepted, they can take care of your back and neck pain, headaches, auto accident injuries, slip and fall incidents, and musculoskeletal conditions. When in pain, call St. Germain. Also, for those of you here in the arena, there was a cell phone turned into the score table in the last game. If you have a blue cell phone and you find that you've been separated from it, come see us and we'll reunite you. The Bears have the opening possession of the second period.
The next jump ball goes to Lake Nona.
So as we get ready to start the second quarter here, taking a look at the stats, they pretty much resemble the records of both these teams. As we mentioned, Winter Springs was only 2-8 at the end of December. Obviously, that's not a very good record, and they are only 1 of 9 from the field, which should not be a surprise considering they've only scored 3 points. Five rebounds, all defensive, and 5 turnovers.
Hi, this is
With that said, Lake Nona came in with a 6-5 record through the end of December. Now, again, 6-5 is not all that impressive a record, to use an old quote, nothing to write home about. However, compared to Winter Springs, that is much better, and the stats also show that out too. Same theme, 5 of 13 from the field. That includes 3 of 7 shooting. All 3 of those came within the first 4 possessions. Again, 5 of 13 it's okay, nothing, but nothing spectacular. But when you compare it to 1 of 9, certainly sticks out. 12 rebounds compared to 5, and 4 of 4 at the free throw line compared to 1 of 4. You add that all up, you get a 12-point lead heading into the second quarter.
Roy Trost to Bryce Johnson for 3.
So no sooner do I talk about the three-point shooting and how that really established Lake Nona's lead, they come out and they do the same here at the second quarter, not just scoring the three-point field goal, but doing it right off the get-go, keeping that pressure on Winter Springs.
Foul called against Darrell Harrington, his second, the team's 8th.
My bad. I thought that was a shooting foul.
I did too.
Okay.
So we're 1 minute 3 seconds into the second quarter, and a 16-point lead has been established by Lake Nona. As again, Winter Springs just could not find the range, but again, that goes back to the selection of field goal attempts. What Lake Nona is taking a far greater amount of high percentage attempts compared to Winter Springs. So again, both these teams are fairly young. They had a lot of turnover last season.
Back up to the low. Settle yourself. Settle. Timeout. Timeout. I was calling timeout when you got the ball right there on the
Checking into the game for the Lions, number 21, Jalen Harper.
So Winter Springs tried to get a timeout so they could keep possession of that. Trying to get a timeout there so they could reset. In the end, Coach Bakanowsky decided just to forgo the timeout because Winter Springs has possession of the ball anyway. Lake Nona has been playing man-to-man defense, half court, throughout the game. So again, there's an example of Winter Springs just not really taking very good field goal shots as far as the opportunity to convert them. That really was not a high percentage, even though he was under the basket. Bad angle and 3 players surrounding him, and that winds up in another basket for Lake Nona.
Charles Mediavilla from Colin Brown for 2.
And again, Lake Nona took a far better shot there. It was a one-on-one opportunity, and he had a much better angle at 45 degrees.
Block is called against number 10, Charles Mediavilla. That's his first in the team's 9th. Checking into the game for the Bears, Mark Moshier.
So again, as we approach the halfway point of the second quarter, Mark, just like to point out, 20 games over 4 days. If basketball, high school basketball is your thing, this certainly is your event. Smorgasbord, what seems to be a never-ending parade of basketball games here.
Two for 2 at the free throw line. A little glimmer of hope here for the Bears in what has otherwise been a very lackluster performance, particularly in the shooting game.
Yeah, and again, I know we've mentioned that all day today. We mentioned it last night, but that's really the way these games have developed. You can take a look at the field goal percentage and also the amount of field goal attempts being taken by the winners. And that in itself is all you really need to know as far as why they're not only winning, but by winning by big scores. Now again, just like the last game in which Evans took a 40-point victory or close to a 40-point victory, rebounds and turnovers have set up that field goal differential.
Fouls called against number 2, A.J. Cofield, his third, the team's sixth. Cooper shooting 2.
Again, Lake Nona came out and established the 11-2 lead about 2 minutes into the ball game. They converted on 4 field goals attempt, 3 of which were 3-point field goals. They were wide open off of transition. 2 of those transition opportunities were created by turnovers. They extended that lead to 17-3 at halftime. It's now 24-6 with 4.5 minutes before halftime. Nice spin move there. Couldn't quite find the right touch, though, on the shot. And a hard-fought rebound there by number 24, Andre Cooper.
And in fact, Andre Cooper goes coast to coast for the Lions. It's not often you see somebody fight that hard for a rebound and also get the layup at the other end with nobody touching it in between. But now we're going to get a 3-point basket from Josue Hernandez, the pass by Varian Mitchell.
And so now for a couple of possessions there where we see both teams scoring because they went to the textbook technique. That Winter Springs, I've mentioned it over and over, they're really not taking good field goal attempts, low percentage. That time it was a very high percentage. They were able to get some open space for their shooter.
Hold is called against Josue Hernandez, his second personal foul, the team's 7th, and it puts the Lions into bonus. Jalen Harper will be at the line, shooting 1-1.
And now that we have some free throw shootings going, Mark, both teams are in the bonus for the rest of the half, and there's still 3 minutes, 38 seconds.
Connor Combs in for the Bears.
Jalen Harper, who's at the line right now, he's a guard shooting forward, 6'2", and a junior. And I did notice he is the 6th man for Lake Nona, so valuable asset. And there you see some of his value. A couple of nice shots, nice stroke at the free throw line. And now Lake Nona's going to a full court defense. Got a 2-1-2 trap. And the trap pays dividends if we get another turnover here by Winter Springs.
Well, actually, that was a block shot. Andre Cooper had the block. Bryce Johnson got the rebound. Okay. And so some good work on defense there, but a miscue there as Charles Mediavilla throws the ball out of reach of Bryce Johnson, and that'll be a turnover.
So now Lake Nona goes back to their half-court defense. And another strong rebound there as Winter Springs throws up yet another I guess say questionable field goal attempt. That wasn't as bad as some of the other ones, but they probably still would have been in better shape if they had been a little bit more patient and went to a couple more passes.
Cooper too hot down the baseline. Rebound goes to Duncan. Mitchell nearly loses his dribble. Finally dances his way into the paint and gets fouled. Varian Mitchell fouled on the attempt to go to the line and shoot 2 for the Bears. Lions foul is called against number 24, Andre Cooper, his second personal foul and the team's 10th.
So I'm not really, Coach Bakanowsky, discussing the foul and the call there with the referees. I'm not sure what exactly he disagrees with as his player got to the line. Nonetheless, 1 of 2 free throws goes in. And one of the bright spots, few bright spots here in this first half of Winter Springs.
Andre Cooper is fouled on the attempt to go to the line and shoot 2. Connor Combs is called on his first personal foul, and the team's 8th.
Both these teams, since we got a break in the action here, have not played in very many Metro versus Florida Challenge. They are both 1 and 2. Of course, Lake Nona has only been in existence for 4 years, so they've only had 4 opportunities. So both free throws good, and now a 20-point lead exists as Lake Nona goes back to their full court trap.
Combs can't get it to go from the top of the key. Rebound goes to Colin Brown. Tries to take it coast to coast himself, gets a shot blocked. Ultimately rebounded by A.J. Cofield. Foul called against Lions number 24, Andre Cooper, his 3rd personal foul. At the line shooting 2 for double bonus, Connor Combs.
So now one difference, or probably the biggest difference as far as the score is concerned between this game and the previous game, which Evans won by around 40 points. A big lead was actually established by Evans from the beginning. I believe it was 11-2, which Winter Springs did here as well. And from there, that lead just kept growing. But it was not, in this game, it has not been as dynamic. It hasn't grown quite as quickly. It's been a much more steady increase. Or at least it appears and feels like it's a much more steady increase.
Varian Mitchell draws the foul. He'll be at the line shooting 2.
So
next, the foul is called against number 14. His 2nd personal foul.
So Evans was basically able to establish that big lead at halftime in bunches. They had 2 big runs. Both were over 10 points as far as the difference. In this particular game, Lake Nona really has not had a run outside of that first run, outside of the first 2 minutes where they scored 11 out of 13 points. It's been more of a couple-point differential over the course of each and every minute. And speaking of minutes, we now have 1 left. It's a 30-12 lead for Lake Nona. And Winter Springs left some points on the table there. We mentioned when we started this quarter, Winter Springs was only 1 of 4 in the first quarter. And they pretty much shot at the same clip here in the second quarter. Certainly when you're down by 18, you cannot afford to leave any points on the table. You're probably looking at a score much closer to 10. And again, 10 is much more manageable than fighting to keep this lead under 20, which Winter Spring has done for most of this second quarter.
And it looks like the Lions are going to be content to hold the ball and try to get the last possession.
Yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying about them building the lead systematically and steadily. Much more patient team here. And trying to play to take some momentum into halftime, which is exactly what they do.
Colin Brown to Bryce Johnson for 3. And another stolen basket by number 14, Roy Traz, and that will add 2 more to the Lions total as they head into the locker rooms. 35-12 is the score at halftime here in Game 9 of the 9th Annual Metro vs. Florida Challenge, presented by Burn Fat Orlando and St. Germain Chiropractic. The Lions have the opening possession of the third period. And welcome back to Joe Sterling Gymnasium. Mark Barchi, the voice of the Metro versus Florida Challenge, here with Neil Fisher from the Apopka Chief. In what has been a slow start for the Bears, to say the least.
Yeah, very slow start for Winter Springs, and the result is a 35-14 deficit, 35-12 deficit. And again, when we started this broadcast, we talked about the difference in records between these teams, which has pretty much been followed here. Again, looking at the stats.
Foul is called against number 32, Bryce Johnson. That's his second personal foul, and the team's first of the half. At the line shooting 2, Cole Duncan.
So through the end of December, Lake Nona had compiled a 6-5 record, which is nothing to write home about. It's respectable, but again, doesn't really catch your eye. And many of the teams that come to this tournament win 20 games, and they talk about long runs into the FHSAA postseason tournament. Lake Nona is just a middle-of-the-road school, and only its fourth year, kind of still trying to find its way. However, when you compare their 6-5 record to Winter Springs at 2-8, it certainly is stands out. And again, all those stats do as well. Starting with field goal percentage, Winter Springs was only 1 of 23 from the field. Yeah, it's, 2 of 23. They have 1 2-point field goal and 1 3-point field goal, while Lake Nona was 10 of 24. So again, probably in the low 40s there. Nothing to write home, respectable, but certainly nothing comparable to many of the other teams that come in here. But when compared to Winter Springs, you're looking at 42 compared to about 15, and that certainly does stand out. Now again, like we've seen in the last 3 or 4 games, that field goal percentage is not just an advantage, but also the amounts. Actually, it's about 24 all, but that percentage, having that advantage in percentage, was created by 26-19 advantage in rebounds.
Foul's called against number 22, Christian Jordan. That's his first personal foul. The team's first this half. And that will send number 21, Jalen Harper, to the line to shoot 2.
And now, speaking of free throws, that's the other stat which really does stand out here, Mark. You're looking at only 3-point difference, but this is a case more so of what Winter Springs has not done than what Lake Nona has. Winter Springs was only 7 of 15 from the line, so that's 8 points that they left off the board. It'd be a much different game than you're looking at a 15-point differential instead of a 23-point differential. Lake Nona was 10 of 10. So, again, it's not just the amount on the board or the difference.
And 2 for 2 here for Andre Cooper, and so the Lions continue their offensive onslaught here.
But it's also just the fact of being able, when you go 10 of 10 of the line, you're establishing yourself as taking away another weapon from Winter Springs. Winter Springs just can't follow you because you'll wind up scoring points anyway.
Colin Brown to Jalen Harper for 3. Bears unable to answer as Jalen Harper gets the rebound. And Butterfingers here. Harper's done a lot of good, but that particular ball handling attempt was not so good. Checking into the game for the Bears, number 5, Carlos McHale.
So now Lake Nona remains. Lake Nona's used several different defenses throughout this game. They're now using a 1-3-1.
Varian Mitchell through traffic for 2.
So again, I gave you the stats, the tangible difference, but there you really see one of the reasons too why Winter Springs is not doing very well, either trailing by over 20. That particular play was exactly what they needed to do, a dribble drive, good passing to set up the dribble drive as the ball went from the left side to the right side. But for the most part, Winter Springs has been a perimeter shooting team. They're just settling. They're not trying to get inside, and they're not taking good looks at the basket. They're often shooting probably quicker than they should, but even when they do shoot, there's always somebody in their face. Complete opposite is true for Lake Nona. I'd say at least half of their shots are open, nobody within 3 feet, and they're balanced as far as three-point field goals and dribble drives.
Checking into the game for the Bears, number 32, Connor Combs.
So approaching the 4-minute mark here in the third quarter. A 25-point lead for Lake Nona. They've led from the start, started by scoring 11 of the first 13 points. And again, another long-range field goal attempted there by Winter Springs, and another rebound pulled down by Lake Nona. Several Lake Nona players, very few for Winter Springs.
Darian Mitchell is fouled on the attempt to go to the line and shoot two. The foul is called against number 21, Jalen Harper, his first personal foul and the team's third. And we'll pause first, though, for a 30-second timeout requested by the Bears. And we'll take this opportunity to thank some of our partners who helped to make the Metro vs. Florida Challenge possible, including your hometown station, 1520 WBZW. They've been very generous with their promotion of this event, helping us to get the word out about this fantastic 20-game showcase. And they are great supporters of Blue Darter Athletics all year long. AM 1520 WBZW, your hometown station. Even if you're not in range of their signal, you can also listen to them online. We also thank Apopka Commissioner Kyle Becker and his colleagues at the City of Apopka for their support of Apopka High School and the Metro vs. Florida Challenge.
And as mentioned, at halftime, Winter Springs has only converted 7 of 15 free throws. That trend continues, splitting the free throw pair there.
Black flag, amazing. Thank you.
Foul called against number 5, Carlos McHale. That's his first, team's second. Roy Tross is at the line shooting two as he hits his first. Checking into the game for the Bears, Josue Fernandez and Leonard Blake.
And while we mentioned that Winter Springs was having its problems at the free throw line, shooting only 7 of 15, Lake Nona was 10 of 10 at halftime, and now they're 13 of 14. So, again, not only is it a difference in the amount of points scored, but just really Winter Springs has left several points on the board, which could have given them some momentum and established their game.
Andre Cooper for two. And we nearly had another stolen basket there.
A lot of action there in that last sequence with no points scored.
Checking into the game for the Lions, number 5, Darrell Harrington. Roy Tross is a little bit short. It's going to go out of bounds off of the Bears. 3-point basket scored by Bryce Johnson.
And so, Mark, we mentioned this in the previous game, Evans and Eastridge, the running clock. Again, you want these games to be competitive, but obviously this has not been a competitive game. As we mentioned, both these teams have been middle-of-the-road programs throughout the course of their existence, or at least for most of it. But even with that said, when you look at these two teams in comparison, Lake Nona is clearly the better team.
Yeah, and earlier today, as we were getting ready for our set of games here on day 3 now, I heard Coach Williams talking about the fact that Metro was off to kind of a bad start, and he predicted that by the end of the day today that the Metro Conference was going to be in the lead, and it looks like they're going to at least tie it with this game, and then we've got some more opportunities coming up with some great Metro teams lined up later in the afternoon and evening today that could very well make that prediction come true.
Yeah, right now it's 4-3, so again, same thing I said in Evans' victory, barring what would be the greatest comeback I've ever seen in my career, at least as far as the lead. We're going to have a 4-4 tie here, and both teams winning 4 games in a row, both sides winning 4 in a row. Looking ahead, our next game is Olympia, representing the Metro Conference, taking on Winter Haven, and that'll be a bit of a different story there.
Held ball, possession Bears.
Different in the sense that Winter Haven is the established school. They were a regional champion last year. They're looking to take that next step. They've been a program the last 10, 12 years with expectations of going deep into the FHSA postseason program. And, of course, Olympia under Rob Gordon is still trying to find their footing. They only went 14-12 last year.
Leonard Blake is called on the hold. It's his second, the team's third. At the line shooting 2, Andre Cooper.
And then following that, this should be a very, very good game, Mark. One of the premier, not just in the Metro Conference, but of course in the state. Dr. Phillips will be taking on Melbourne. Dr. Phillips, of course, has been the proverbial bridesmaid, going to the state final, I believe, 3 times now. Not quite being able to win that last game. Last year, their streak of over 20-plus seasons, winning at least 20 games, came to and it only came to an end by 1 game. They still were 19-9.
Yeah, and then Melbourne is a school that we here at the Metro versus Florida Challenge know very little about. They have actually never appeared before at the Metro versus Florida Challenge. This will be their first ever appearance. So we'll see how they fare against a Metro Conference opponent. Not just any Metro Conference opponent, but as you mentioned, the Panthers, which are, even when they're not on the very top of their classification, they've really, they put up a respectable showing every year.
Yeah,
you don't ever have to worry about that.
Well, last year, their 19-9 record, they won their district regular season in the tournament.
Well, and they're the kind of program that's disappointed with a 19-win season.
Yeah,
there are a lot of programs that would kill for a 19-win season.
But not just 19 wins, but they won their district tournament. They were the regular season district champion, and they lost in the regional semifinals, which is the round of 16. That's considered a very poor season for them. And here, as the third quarter comes to an end, real quick, running clock just simply means that once the lead gets to at least 35 points, that clock keeps running. There is no stoppage other than timeouts.
Well, that takes us to the end of the third period, and it's 31-point ball game. 47-16 is the score at the end of 3 periods here in game number 9 of the 9th annual Metro versus Florida Challenge. And if you did not have a chance to grab one on the way in, we do have some beautiful programs available for you that are just $1 each. It actually costs us more than that to make them, but we sell them to you for just $1 because we want everybody who wants one to have a chance to get one. If you would like, you can also get them for free on your phone or your tablet or your mobile device. You can go to metrovsfl.com and download a full color version of the program. And on that program, you'll find our complete schedule as well as season outlooks for all 39 teams participating. We also have all the rosters and team info in there. Coming up next here at the Metro versus Florida Challenge, we're going to turn our attention to the Olympia Titans as they take on the Winter Haven Blue Devils. That's scheduled for a 3:30 start, and Lord willing, we might make it to that.
So as we begin the fourth quarter, again, barring what would just be an incredible comeback, it would be the largest I've ever seen in my career, 26 years. We have a 31-point lead. And
Foul called against number 3, Sean Merrill. That's his first personal foul, the team's 4th.
And all the statistics pretty much resemble that 31-point lead held by Lake Nona. I'll get into those in a minute because you've heard them throughout the game. Nothing's changed. But this has been really not so much of a dynamic, explosive lead being taken where you have one team, in this case Lake Nona, scoring a couple of runs, bunches of points.
Foul called against Sean Merrill, his second, now the team's 5th. Shooting 2, Vernon Begay.
But it's been a gradual and steady increase in that lead. Lake Nona came out, took an 11-2 lead. They scored 4 field goals out of 5 attempts in the first minute and a half. 3 of those field goals were 3-point attempts. All 3 came off of transition, and 2 of the 3 were off turnovers. But since that 11-2 run, they really have not scored more than about 5 points in a row. They've just steadily increased that lead by a couple points at each and every minute.
And so, Neil, now we have a 33-point game that is threatening to go into a running clock situation. We'll see if it gets there.
And statistics, of course, field goal percentage for Winter Springs, 3 of 32. They started off bad, and it's just gotten worse from there. That is under 10%. And again, compared to Lake Nona, Lake Nona is 13 of 41. Nothing to write home, nothing that catches the eye, but 13 of 41 compared to 3 of 32 stands out.
Yeah, and the Lions got away with one there. They should have lost the ball to a steal on that poorly advised pass. I mean, I get it. You're trying to be aggressive and score in transition, but if the play isn't there, boy, yeah, that could have been a steal. This is a steal.
And a 3-point.
Cole Duncan gets a long 2-point jump shot off of the pass from Varian Mitchell.
And Lake Nona also has built a 39-24 lead in rebounds. And again, that's very much like the previous game with Evans. You obviously have the field goal percentage, which stands out when you compare the two.
Andre Cooper on the pass from Brian Johnson.
But the underlying cause of being able to get such a big difference there, again, nothing spectacular. It's probably about 40 to about 7 or 8%. The percentage in itself is only about 40%, but compared to about 8 or 9% stands out. And the reason that you're able to get that percentage is the rebounding. 14 rebounds for Lake Nona, so that definitely is 14 more opportunities for Lake Nona to score.
Block is called against Sean Merrill. That's his 3rd personal foul, the team's 6th.
And then probably the final straw that breaks the camel back as far as statistics is 14 of 16 performance by Lake Nona compared to 9 of 19 in Winter Springs. And as I mentioned in the last quarter, obviously 14 of 16 is very good, and there's something to be said about that. But I think when you compare it to Winter Springs, what really stands out or has affected the direction of this game is more of what Winter Springs has not done, and the fact that they've missed 10 free throws.
Push is called against number 11, Leonard Blake is 3rd, the team's 7th. At the line shooting is number 1, Nicholas Cross.
You know, free throws are opportunities for free points. They're called free throws for a reason. But when you fall behind 11-2 at the beginning of the game, that's an opportunity for you to kind of catch your breath and be able to settle yourself down, find your footing. And Winter Springs just has not done that by missing the 10 free throws.
Foul is called against number 3, Sean Merrill. That'll be his 4th personal foul. And the team's 8th at the line shooting bonus, number 12, Francisco Ramirez.
So now we're right on the verge of a running clock, 34 points. Oh, and we still can't get that running clock.
White 12, how many?
Foul's called against number 12, Francisco Ramirez, his first personal foul, and it's the team's fourth.
And I'd just like to say, Mark, too, you know, one of the great things that you really don't notice about this event, unless you're doing it like we do every year, is you get to see the different teams waiting to play. During the first half, Olympia was sitting over in the stands there, Rob Gordon's team, and they looked quite primed, looked like they were ready to at least take the court here as far as being excited about representing the Metro Conference.
There it is.
Putback is made by number 14, Roy Traz. And that was what we needed to get to that running clock.
Yeah, and now that we're in running clock here, we're not going to be talking much longer. And I'd just like to bring up the point here. I believe, and barring what would be an incredible, it's a subtle thing, but it would be incredible as far as beating the odds. I believe Winter Springs is going to score the lowest amount of points at this year's event. Again, I know they're a young team, and obviously they have a long way to go, and they have a lot of issues to work out with their 2-8 record at the end of December. And I can always say that that certainly has been reflected here. They have played hard, and they continue to play hard. Certainly, you can see the effort being put in.
Good defensive work there by Emilio Rivera. Let's calibrate our clock here with the clock in the arena.
So, but unfortunately, as I pointed out here in this fourth quarter a couple of times, Mark, they just, even a team with a 6-5 record like Nona is far superior in every area, starting with the skill, talent, physical size, speed. And they've been steadily taken advantage of by Lake Nona.
Roy Traz on the layup. Good work there by Pacey getting the rebound, but the three won't convert for Merrill. More good work by Pacey there on the rebound.
So, again, Winter Springs stuck on only 18 points. And again, despite Winter Springs' best effort, they are going to wind up with the lowest amount of points in this year's event. And with 2 minutes left here, running clock, both teams have remained in man-to-man defense.
Black 11, how many? I like your intensity. Thank you.
Foul's called against number 11, Leonard Blake, his fourth personal foul, the team's ninth at the line. Shooting for the Lions, number 2, Emilio Rivera.
And this pair of free throws should pretty much kill most of this clock.
No, it's actually not a pair. It's still a regular bonus for one more.
Okay, well, I guess I was wrong then. Just for the record, it is a little bit hard to see on that end there.
Three-pointer for Blake won't go. And we'll pause for a timeout called by the Lions. Checking into the game for the Lions, number 3, Colin Brown. And so that's not a real substantive timeout there. They're just going to burn one so that they can get a substitute into the game. All right, so a little bit of an internal dispute there among the Lions, and they will take the full timeout as they're not able to get the substitution handled there correctly. I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. Kind of a unusual disagreement between the coach and the player on the court, but in any case, while we're paused here for a timeout, we again draw your attention to our sponsors that you will find in the insert to your program. Please patronize them and let them know how much you appreciate their support of the Metro vs. Florida Challenge. This massive 20-game showcase requires a lot of resources and would not be possible without the tremendous support we get from our community. Baptiste Orthodontics, Elevate Orlando, Burn Fat Orlando, St. Germain Chiropractic, WBZW, and the City of Apopka Commission.
So minute 11 left here. As you said, Mark, Lake Nona did make a substitution, and fortunately this game has been, at least as far as the outcome, decided a long time ago. Again, Winter Springs came in here. They played hard. They gave a great effort. Just unfortunately, and as you would expect with a team that's only 2-8 through December, just were outclassed in every way. Lake Nona itself, a middle-of-the-road team, was 6-5, but still far superior, and steadily and methodically built the lead, starting with an 11-2 run at the beginning of the ball game.
Leonard Blake is called on the foul. It's his 5th. He'll retire from the game with the rebound. Mark Mosher is into the game for him, at the line shooting Vernon McGay. And that takes us to the end of the ball game, and it's another Metro victory here in game number 9 of the Metro versus Florida Challenge. 57-18 is the final score as the Lions bring the Metro Conference to victory here at Joe Sterling Gymnasium. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much for coming out this afternoon and or for joining us on our YouTube channel, Metro vs. Florida Challenge, to support your Lion and Bear athletes. Don't go anywhere except the concession stand. We've got lots more basketball action coming your way as we head toward game number 10 coming up next. We'll switch gears and we'll have the Olympia Titans taking on the Winter Haven Blue Devils in just about 10 minutes. We'll see you then. For those of you who are on the webcast, please make sure that you remember that you'll need to exit this webcast and enter the next one in order to continue watching, since we have each of our games on a separate feed. We'll see you in about 10 minutes.